Welcome everyone to Ring of Fire Con for our spotlight panel with the Mistress of Fiction, Cat Rambo. Cat Rambo, welcome to Ring of Fire Con. I'm going to be interviewing you, and I'm looking forward to this. This is a big treat.
This is a lot of fun. I'm very excited to be here at Ring of Fire Con and also traveling through virtual space. So
absolutely, virtual space. And I think if there's a moniker for 2020, it should be virtual space.
It's true.
So, and you're in Seattle, which I appreciate you getting up at the bright and early hours of the morning to record this panel with us. So, Kat, I mean, you are, in terms of fantasy science fiction, you've kind of done it all. I mean, you were the co-editor of Fantasy Magazine, which got you, which involved you with Asimov's and Clark's World Magazine and Tor. Can you give me just a brief, synopsis of your massive story career?
My massive story career. Well, I started writing seriously in 2005. I had been working for Microsoft, and I was at a point where I wasn't super happy with what I was doing. And I had always thought I would be a writer. My grandmother wrote young adult novels, and I had gone off to Johns Hopkins and studied and gotten a master's in fiction writing, and it had somehow kind of gotten sidetracked into computer stuff, as one does. So in 2005, I went off to the Clarion West Writers Workshop here in Seattle, which is a 6-week program where you're producing a story a week and critiquing 17 stories by the other people in the program. And I was in that program actually with one of the most daunting individuals to share a workshop with, Ann Leckie.
Oh my.
Yeah, I had Ann Leckie and Rachel Swirsky in my workshop. And at one point I said to Leckie, I hope you know I love you, because otherwise I would have to kill you. Because she set the bar so impossibly high for the rest of us. It was just crazy. But after Clarion West, people kept coming up to us at Clarion West, and they'd say with this kind of sad look on their face, like, well, Clarion West breaks some writers. And of course, sleeplessly, we would say, like, what? And they'd say, well, there's just so much information coming at you that some people just get paralyzed and they don't write for months or years after the workshop. And I had quit Microsoft in order to go to the workshop, and had a spouse who was willing to pay the mortgage and take care of healthcare for a while. And I was pretty sure he was not going to be super sympathetic to this idea of being broken by the workshop, as enticing as the idea of being broken and just playing World of Warcraft for 8 hours straight for several weeks sounded. So I kept writing a story a week after that. And I was sending stuff out. I was sending stuff out to Fantasy Magazine, and at some point, because I had done, I think Jeff Vandermeer was slushing for them or reading for them as well, and he'd ended up reaching out to me about a story that I had published in there. The circumstances are somewhat fuzzy in my mind, but I became the editor, and I kept writing a lot of short stories. I wrote a fantasy novel that ended up becoming 2 fantasy novels, and that's the start of the quartet that came out with Wordfire Press.
Excellent.
I turned in the 3rd book of that, Exiles of Tabat. And 2 years ago, I decided I was going to self-publish. And I had been at the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, and I met this guy named Chris Fox, who wrote a book called How to Write 5,000 Words in an Hour. And I was like, 5,000 words in an hour, sign me up. And the thing I found out is that I cannot actually write 5,000 words in an hour. And I'm not really sure Chris can either.
That's a lot. I mean,
it's
that's
a lot of words.
That's a kind of Flash level of typing.
It was crazy. But I did discover a routine that let me bang out a book over the course of 6 weeks. And I was writing 5,000 words a day, which also involved staying off the internet pretty sedulously. So I'd written this book and I was like, I really am happy with this book. It's fun, it's space opera. It was inspired by something Ian Leckie had said in one of my classes. And so I went to my agent and I was like, hey, dude, need you to sign off on this because I'm going to self-publish it. And he was like, yeah, well, how about you let me try to sell it? And I was like, no, dude, you're going to take this book and you're going to shop it around for 2 years and you're just going to make me feel sad and unhappy, because this was my experience so far with agents. I mean, this has happened multiple times. They take a book and they'd be like, oh, this is so great. You're going to be the next China Miéville. And then they would fail to sell it. And so I was like, no, screw you. You know, keep in my book.
Mine. Yeah.
Mine. And he talked me out of that. And I actually am super happy that he did, because he managed to get a 3-book deal from a 6-figure 3-book deal from Tor Macmillan.
Oh, congratulations.
Which comes out in September of 2021.
Awesome.
So,
that is awesome. And I want to ask you, like, you know, you talked about the Beasts of Tabat, which is your quartet through Wordfire Press.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and you just turned in the 3rd book of that, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So, the Exiles of Tabat. Tell me a little bit about the world of Tabat. I hope it's the world of Tabat.
Oh, yes. And boy, it's been pronounced a lot of different ways. So I started writing Tabat stories actually in 2005. One of my earliest stories published in Fantasy Magazine, The Dead Girl's Wedding March, is set in that city. And I kept returning to that world and working in it. And it is a world where it's basically a secondary fantasy world where intelligent magical creatures like unicorns and minotaurs and centaurs and stuff are part of society, but they exist in a very specific niche, which is basically that they are enslaved. Oh, and wow. So the economy of the city is driven by their work, and also their bodies are used for magical components for spells. And so the books take place at a time when the creatures are saying, hey, maybe this isn't the natural order. Like, why would this be the natural order? And so it's a season of riots and political upheaval. And there is, in fact, a figure who is causing riots in order to sort of demonize the beasts and stay in power, which is a kind of, there's some weird resonances with.
So I was about to say, I mean, you wrote this in 2005, right? Because
I've written it. It took me, so Beasts of Tabat, I wrote in like the 5 years after Clarion West. So yeah, I'd finished it by 2010, and then I kept working on it. One of the reasons I can never leave my spouse is that he read 13 different drafts of this same book.
Creatives, their spouses are long-suffering, as both my spouse and yours know. Yeah. But I would say that, I mean, that's amazingly poignant and also contemporary, considering everything that's going on in, 2020 with, murder hornets and various wildfires and upheavals and, I'm waiting for frogs.
Just to kind of elaborate slightly on that, I'm sorry. The reason that I wanted to write the book was because I wanted to talk about oppression, and I wanted to talk specifically about how an oppressing group takes the group that's being oppressed and they both demonize and infantilize them. And so one of the things that's repeated by the humans to kind of justify what's happening is they say, well, beasts behave according to their nature, and we have to take care of them, and they're just not quite, there's a reason. And then there's, at the same time, there's a narrative going that these are incredibly dangerous creatures and that they're enslaved in order to protect.
So you have two counter narratives going at the same time. That's fascinating. And and exactly what we are looking at in modern era. that's fascinating, and that's something where I'm gonna have to, I'm gonna have to reread the Beasts of Tabat now. But it's gonna be a 4-book series, correct?
Yes.
Quartet?
Working on outlining the last one now.
Excellent.
I'm hoping to turn that in mid 2021. We'll see if I stay.
Excellent. And your space opera, I'm curious. Can you give me a bullet points, the 5 second, 15 minutes elevator pitch? Because I'm curious. I love space opera, and the fact that space opera is coming back, it makes me a very happy little man.
You will like this book because it is full of banter and grand things. Basically, what happens is there is a group of mercenaries that have been in the employ of the holy hive mind, and they have escaped, and they've retired. They have created a restaurant, the Last Chance restaurant, aboard a space station. And they are preparing for a very important meal where a food critic is going to arrive. And this could actually be the making or breaking of the restaurant. And a mysterious package arrives. Things start exploding, and they steal an intelligent spaceship that is not really sure it wants to be stolen in order to escape. The name of the spaceship is the title of the book, and the name of the spaceship is You Sexy Thing.
You Sexy Thing. Oh my. And I have to actually be careful because my wife is actually teaching a class in the next. So,
Well, I had never realized that a title could be quite so contentious as far as kind of like going back and forth with marketing was. And in fact, just a week ago, they were like, hey, we're thinking about changing the title again. And I was just like, guys, I'm going to draw my line in the sand here. And just,
this is the hill I'm going to die on. Yeah. No, I can understand that. And you also have a great deal of experience. I mean, now working with marketing from Thor and all of that, you have a great deal of experience working with, both publishers and marketing, because you were the president of CIFOA and are now president emeritus of CIFOA, correct?
Yeah, yes, I hadn't realized I have a title. Yes, president emeritus. One of the things that happened to me when I first started writing was I went off to Dragon Con. I believe this was in 2004. And Anne Crispin, I don't know if you remember the writer Anne Crispin.
I know Anne, I remember Anne.
Okay, she did the writing workshop.
Really?
And she told us all sitting there, she said, here's what you do. I remember this. I remember her as chewing gum and kind of saying this at the same time, which may or may not be accurate. I may have added the gum. But she said, here's what you do, is you sell a story at CIFOA Pro rates, and you join CIFOA, and you volunteer immediately. And I was like, all righty, because I like it when people set goals for me. And I was like, okay, that gives me things to shoot for. And so I sold a story at CIFOA Pro Rate. I mailed off the CIFOA application, and CIFOA cashed my check and then apparently lost the application, which may have been a premonition. But eventually I became a CIFOA member and volunteered with the copyright committee, actually, which was really interesting and fun. It was really interesting. Let me strike out that last part. It was interesting. But I ended up doing a lot of volunteer work with them. I moderated their discussion boards for a long time. And at some point, Stephen Gould said, could you come and take the vice presidency for a year? Because they're in the process of changing the way the terms work. And I was like, okay. And during the course of that year, I kicked off a lot of projects, and I decided I wanted to stick around and keep them going. And honestly, I'm very proud of my work with CIFOA. I think the organization has changed radically under my leadership, and I'm just tremendously pleased with it.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, and CIFOA itself is a group that is for all of our listeners. If you are interested in getting into the industry, CIFOA is a avenue and a resource that you should absolutely look at. And I mean, And under Cat, I mean, CIFOA's membership grew and built up significantly, and it's wonderful to see.
Well,
And I beg your pardon?
I'm going to call that out because I do want to make clear, because one of the things that people sometimes don't know is what CIFOA is, which
Please.
is a over 50-year-old organization of professional fantasy and science fiction writers that now, as part of my administration, now admits independently published people. You don't have to be traditionally published, and that includes crowdsourced publishing stuff. Also
Yes.
now admits game writers. And
Yes.
working on comic book writers right now. Yeah,
And it's interesting because we're beginning to see some of those walls kind of fall down. I mean, there was a point where, you had New York traditional publishing writers, and then you had independent
yes.
or independent writers or small press writers, and then you had game writers and then comic book writers. And now we're seeing writers of all sorts kind of beginning to intermingle, which I find fascinating. What would you say in terms of the industry, how that has changed how things are approached?
Well, I think a really cool thing has happened in terms of more and more writers getting a chance to move away from. But here, I'll just be straight out. I think traditional publishing had moved away to a model where it treated the writers as commodities, where it treated the writers as interchangeable, and where basically you had an industry based off the efforts of those writers that sometimes did not take care of them as well as it could have. And that's one of the reasons CIFOA exists. And one of the reasons I love indie publishing is it's taken away some of the ways that traditional publishing used to be able to kind of screw writers over, such as letting their works go out of print. And nowadays, a writer with a substantial following can self-publish or can
Yes.
join a collective or kind of go with a small press. I'm thinking Judith Tarr, if you don't know her, is a tremendously wonderful fantasy writer who you got kind of, I think traditionally publishing let a lot of her stuff go out of print, and I see all of it up on Bookview Cafe, which is great for me because now I can go find it, and there's so much more good stuff that.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is that really, the new avenues for publishing, your ebooks and so on, we're beginning to see that because, for those of you who don't know, there was a ruling called Thor Power versus the IRS back in the 80s that destroyed, in many ways, the backlist of so many authors. And what it did is that it prevented publishers really from writing as a loss books that they had in their inventory, because that was technically income in potentia.
Mm-hmm.
But what it really did is that they're like, well, if we only sell 5 books of this year, make it out of print. Now we're beginning to see things like, Kobo, Audible. We're beginning to see things like, the Nook and the ebooks and so on. Draft to Digital, Ingram Spark, beginning to bring books into very different areas of publishing that really weren't available.
Yeah.
I mean, how has the industry just changed for you since 2005?
Well, one really interesting change has been the development of crowdfunded stuff. And so like I have a Patreon, which making a decent amount of money for me each month, which is super for me because it's money I can count on, as opposed to sort of like, well, I sold a story 6 months ago, oh, here's the check for it sort of stuff. And so like on that, I've been doing what I see a lot of more people doing, which is writing serial fiction. And I think we're seeing an uprise in serial fiction and in that kind of fiction that is released as entertainment. There's also Choice of Games is doing really interesting sort of fiction / games.
Yeah, RPG. You know, I read it, and some of it's fascinating because like, you know, like a medieval fantasy with Batman NECA, which I'm like, this is either the most awesome thing. This is either an awesome bad book or a bad awesome book. I don't know which.
But
Awesome is in there, you know, and that's the point. Is that, you know, I read it and I'm like, this is essentially Pacific Rim in fantasy.
Yeah.
And it has the same kind of trope because I watched Pacific Rim going, I don't know if this is a good movie or not, but it's amazing.
Awesome.
You know, exactly. You know, you sit there, you're like, okay, you know, complete with rock opera score.
No, that's the other thing about indie publishing, is that I see more experiments going on there.
Very true.
It's because they are not driven by marketing departments as much as traditional publishing. I had a friend who wrote a terrific book that went up to auction, and all the editors were like, we love this. And marketing in every case said, we have no idea what to do with this. And so, no.
And I have seen books like that.
Yeah.
You know, some people have brought me books and they're like, oh, you know, Mr. Vandenberg. And I was like, please, child, don't call me that. And they're like, can you read this? And I read it and I'm like, this is actually very well done. They're like, well, we're thinking of giving it to an agent. I was like, uh-huh. And they're like, and maybe like New York Publishing. I was like, I'm going to be fair with you. And I was like, this is amazing. The prose is amazing. It's very clever. They won't know what to do with this because, I mean, like at one point, a guy gave me a book called The Edible States of America, which was essentially a Kafka. I mean, it was essentially Kafka meets the Slaughterhouse-Five, except with food. So you essentially became the food that you most resembled. And I was like, it's weird.
Yeah.
The prose was amazing on it, but it was so weird. And I'm like, no, kid, no, you're gonna have to do this one on your own because they won't know what to do with this. I mean, to be fair, I am the marketer that people go to when they don't want to go to a marketing department. And I don't know what I would do with this, but you know, exactly the same thing, you know, and it is fascinating to see that. What else? I'm sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there.
Oh, well, what else has changed about
in publishing? Yeah, I mean, because we do see so much.
You are seeing more and more writers become hybrid writers, and I think you will see more and more of that because honestly, the thing about traditional publishing is that you can be a New York Times bestseller and yet not be rolling around in a swimming pool full of gold coins in a sort of Scrooge McDuck way. In fact, that's just not how it works, right? Advances get doled, you know, they don't like, here's all the money. Like, here, we're going to dole this out as slowly as possible.
Yeah. They don't give you the obligatory bag of money.
Yeah, that's it. You know, you have to just put a big dollar sign on it. And so, I mean, one of the best pieces of advice that Michael Swanwick, who's a writer who should know, gave me is when the antelopes are plentiful, you stash a bunch away in your freezer. And that is the truth of being a writer is that it's a somewhat unpredictable existence. And the nice thing about being a hybrid writer, being supported by Patreon or by self-publishing backlist and all of that is that you can make that flow be steadier. And it's so important, you know, if you're raising a family, if you're, if you're the person providing, or even if you're just, you know, alive in America and need to pay for healthcare.
It's a thing. Yeah. Now I would say this, you know, you talked about, you know, You Sexy Thing, and you talked about the Beasts of Tabat, and you do a lot of short fiction. Where can a lot of people find, are there collections of that short fiction that we can
Oh,
find?
there's lots of collections. There's Near Plus Far actually has my Nebula Award nominated short story in it.
We were getting to that next.
I was going to point to my Carpe Glitter, which
Very nice.
year won a Nebula Award. In fact, I have carefully moved it over to my desk so I can hold up the Nebula in its glory.
Oh, that's glorious.
It was
Congratulations.
Yeah, I was super stoked about that. And it was a little tiny press that came to me and said, do you have a novelette or novella? And I said, yeah. And I do love short fiction. I have 4, it depends on how you count it, 5 collections out, maybe 6 collections. But I'm also editing an anthology I'm taking actually submissions this month for an anthology that's going to come out with Meerkat, with Arc Manor, called The Reinvented Heart, which is about, it's going to be all science fiction about relationships in the future, open to female and non-binary authors.
Excellent.
And then I also, here's a cavalcade of stuff. This book just came out, and The Last Trump Shall Sound, from Arc Manor. And I was super stoked about this because it is a project that I co-wrote with Harry Turtledove and James Morrow. And I'm going to say those 2 assholes wrote me into a corner and were like, here's 2 completely disparate novellas. You create the thing that somehow marries them.
I actually read this Trump Will Sound and I loved it.
It was a lot of fun. But I'm going to say Jim Morrow is a tough act to follow. And they first gave me his novella, and I'm just like, you have a cross-dressing porn star going undercover, and you've got an animatronic Trump, and I was just like,
what do I do with this? Yeah.
So I've been pleased with it, and of course, the challenge of writing this book in 2020 because I turned in the novella in January of 2020. Mm-hmm. And I got the copy edits through various reasons in, I want to say, late March, early April. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at it, and I don't know, you may be aware, the world changed somewhat.
Yeah, just a tad. I mean, we were getting ready to meet in Seattle when the world changed, if I remember correctly. And I had actually
set up for Emerald
I
City.
was having an ongoing debate with Eric Flint, who wanted to go regardless of risk. And I'm like, no, you're not. No. And he's like, yes, I am. I'm like, no, you're not.
No,
like,
Eric,
yes, I am. And he's like, no. I'm like, no, you're not. And he goes, listen, I'm taking my own plane there. I was like, fine, I have the badge. You're not getting in. And, he's like, why do you have to be such a jerk about this? I said, because I like you, and I don't like my friends dying. Okay?
Yes. So, and I love Comic-Con. I love Emerald City Comic-Con. I'm just so sad not to get a chance to be at Bard's Tower.
Oh, yes.
Selling away, because it's one of my favorite things to do. But at the same time, they were kind of skating up to the edge. Or I was like, nope.
Well, I mean, and to be fair, I mean, with the Bard's Tower hat on, I was kind of sitting there going I'm not going to have any authors there. I'm going to be in the booth with my giant fluffy hat by myself. And, and I'm not entirely sure I should be there either. I mean, I'm getting up there.
Yeah.
And it was actually, I will say this entire year, I wouldn't say that I am missing Comic-Cons, but I will say that I undercooked a hot dog and charged myself $6 for it. Just to remind myself.
That's it. I went to my collection of tiny soaps. Here, I'll take a tiny bar of soap. But it's the thing about it, though. I mean, for me, this year has actually been incredibly productive. And the reason has been, one, that I am not traveling every frickin' weekend, but it's also as part of my school and my Patreon, we've been doing daily co-working sessions.
Excellent.
And there is something about working for a couple of hours in company with other people. And we don't all write. Some people, we had somebody filing a patent the other day, which was awesome. But there's something about that community. 2020 has been a paradoxically a year of increased community for me, in fact.
That's interesting, and that's not unfair. Actually, at one point, my wife said, "We know our neighbors now better than we've ever known them before,"
Yeah.
and that's not unfair. I mean, I'm in New Jersey, which is, pandemic, pseudo pandemic central. But the thing is that we know our neighbors more so than we ever have, because, like you, I was traveling, pretty much every weekend across the country and so on, and that hasn't happened. Now, you mentioned a school, so you teach writing to other.
I do. I have actually, this is the 10th year of the
Nice.
Rambo Academy for Wayward Writers. We do online classes, and I bring in amazing writers. I do some of the teaching, but I also have Ann Leckie has come and taught space opera for me. Shannon McGuire has come and taught. Fran Wild. And we've got classes every weekend, basically.
Awesome.
Yeah. And that's been, we have a virtual campus that includes a lot of events. Like we do a weekly, we've been reading each week a classic science fiction short story, and then if people want to log in and we can talk about it, which has been really cool for me, because I like talking about short stories. And
Oh, absolutely. And with the Rainbow School, are there other meetings? Is there, like, the obligatory airing of grievances, or
I would say, so there is a Discord channel. Everything takes place on Discord or Slack nowadays.
I was joking, by the way.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, the Discord channel, actually, we have moderators, and it's grown to a pretty significant community. And it's been really interesting to me. Like, at one point, somebody was like, "We need to be able to talk politics on here." And I was like, "Well, I don't think this is going to work, but okay." And so we put in a politics channel, and I logged in the next day, and there's like 500 posts. And they're just getting worse and worse and worse. And I was like, okay, we made this experiment, and now the rule is that we don't have a politics channel.
Yeah. Lesson learned. It's like watching the debate. It's just kind of, you're like, oh God, this is a trend. Oh,
and we keep one of
on both sides. I'm like, guys, like gentlemen.
We keep like all the mention of the pandemic is in one channel, and that way people can kind of pretend, I mean, it's all writing focused. So
yeah. So do you think that we're going to have a spate of pandemic science fiction come 2022?
I'm sure that every editor right now is just getting such a slow, and they're getting not just pandemic stories, they're getting stories about people in isolation. So they're getting stories of like two people in a spaceship, and then they want to kill each other.
Oh God.
So,
I had not thought about the isolation angle, but I sat here and I'm like, we're gonna have a spate of pandemic stories just going.
Well, and I've got like Sarah Pinsker, who's coming to teach a class for me actually in December. I was giving her a certain amount of grief because her book that just came out, A Song for a New Day, is about a pandemic, and came out just, I want to say, like 3 months before this happened. Oh, and I was like, so how much did you get right? And she's like, yeah, I got most of it right.
Yikes.
Well, have you been watching, there's a show called Utopia.
I have.
That is about a pandemic, and it's been interesting to watch, although it is somewhat concerning to me, because to me in some ways it seems to play into that whole weird QAnon conspiracy narrative that seems to be gaining a certain amount of ascendancy.
You know, I had somebody who actually approached me with a book, and it was like you know, it was essentially the Illuminatus trilogy, except not.
Except, yeah.
And so I'm reading this, and I'm like, okay, and I was like, it's interesting, and I was like, this is an interesting book. However, really, you have kind of, frankly, a trope overload here.
Yeah.
And granted, tropes are not bad things. Tropes exist for a reason. However, I was like, what I would find more fascinating is just that if you're going with the horror aspect of this, which is what you're kind of going for. It was kind of a weird science fiction horror thriller thing. I was like, you know, and I kind of wanted to say pick a genre, kid.
Yeah.
But what I said, I was like, really, with all these conspiracies piling up on top of each other, what would be actually more terrifying is just that if none of the conspiracies are really in charge, that really at the end of the day, we're on a boat that's rudderless.
That yes.
You know.
Yeah.
And you know, hopefully he'll come back with me with a rewrite that I will find interesting on that.
That would be cool, yeah.
But in reality, I mean, now we're getting close to our time, so I do want to know, you mentioned a Patreon, you mentioned your school, and where can we find your books? And where can we talk to you?
Oh, okay, so you can always find me on most social media as Cat Rambo. Certainly I am on the Twitters. I have a YouTube channel. You can find it. I have a website, catrambo.com, and I've tried to make the website be a decent portal to finding other stuff. But you certainly can find the books. If you are ordering them, I urge people not to order them through certain large corporations, but actually check and see if your local indie bookstore is ordering, because this is a time when we really should be supporting those indie bookstores, or efforts like Bard's Tower. I don't know, is Bard's Tower doing books for?
We are doing books. We're actually going to be doing books for Ring of Fire Con.
Okay,
so
awesome. So
we will have signing times for, I think, everybody. I think Eric is getting you those signing times very shortly.
I have book plates, so if anyone would like a book plate, I'm happy to mail you a bunch of them too.
Awesome.
I'm getting some special ones made for Carpe Glitter, but they're not done yet.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. All right. And anything else you want to share with the reading audience out there before we go?
I actually am going to close not with a reading thing, but I'm going to say that right now is a really weird year. That right now is a super kind of confusing and horrible time. And that in the weeks to come leading up to the elections, there's just going to be all sorts of weird convulsions and misinformation. And just all sorts of reasons for people to stir up hatred. So I urge people, don't get discouraged. Remember to vote, help get the vote out. It's just so important this year. But if you need to step away from the fray, know that there are others here that will hold the lines for a little while, and, you know, do what you can. We are all in this together right now, and that's very important to keep in mind. So, and writers, I think we inspire and we entertain, and I just want people to know that the writing really, really matters deeply.
Thank you. Thank you, Kat. And thank you, everybody, for listening. All right. Well, thank you for being with us. And, you know, we will be continuing on Ring of Fire Con. Kat, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, yay, Ring of Fire!